Hello, everyone. Once again, thank you so much for joining the webinar today. I'm glad to introduce Zoho Expense, your first step towards effortless expense reporting. My name is Unni. I'll be taking you through the application and I'll give you an overview of all the main features. I have my colleague Pranath and Selva, and they will be joining us for today's session. Let me remind you that this is a listen only mode webinar. So if you have any questions across the webinar session, please do post them in the GoToWebinar control panel chat box, and my colleagues will be answering them. Before I begin, let me tell you a little bit about Zoho. Zoho has more than 25 different cloud-based applications which will help you in managing your business. That is from sales to marketing to finance and so on. Zoho has every application you need to run your business. So please do check www.zoho.com for more details on them. To give you an example, to manage your business finance, we have Zoho Books, which is an online accounting software. We also have Zoho Invoice, which is a simple invoicing software. And let's say if you have a subscriptions based business, you can manage your subscriptions using Zoho Subscriptions. Today, I'm going to talk about our brand new application, Zoho Expense, that we just added to our finance suite. So let's start with the presentation and let's see what Zoho Expense is. Zoho Expense is an expense reporting tool which will reduce your effort in expense reporting. It automates the expense recording. All you have to do is just take a snapshot of the receipt and upload it. Everything else will be taken care by this application. You can also connect your credit and debit card to this application, which will fetch the transaction feeds and you can convert them into expenses in just a click. And employee advances, reimbursements, etc. can be recorded, and approvals and analytics is also another good feature in this application. You can control your expenditures by putting general policies by which you can limit the expense amount, and you can gain visibility into the spending, that is where exactly your company is spending more, using the analytics section. So before I start explaining about Zoho Expense, let's consider an example in the conventional way of expense reporting. Let's say you're running a business and under you there will be managers, sales or marketing employees, or just say some traveling employees. So once your employees goes for a business trip, and let me say New York, they will incur a lot of expenses. That is, and they will come back with a bunch of receipts and record them in spreadsheets with all required details, upload it to an email, attach all the receipts with it, and send it across to a manager for further approvals. So the manager, once he receives this email, he will double check it. I mean, he will review it, check all the company, check for any company policy violations. That is, if he has spent more than what the company permits. And finally, like he will double check with the receipts and the entries in the spreadsheet, etc. And he will approve it or reject it by sending another email to the employee. So if the expense report is approved, it has to be sent to another higher authority for reimbursement. So these back and forth emails and double checking of all entries all are a time consuming and a little confusing process. So this is what we simplify in Zoho Expense. No back and forth emails or double checking. Just in a couple of clicks, the whole job is done. All you have to do is create a Zoho Expense organization in which you can invite the managers as well as your employees or salespersons. So they will be able to log into Zoho Expense and they can upload receipts, create expenses, reports, and push them to the manager for approvals. Now I will demonstrate the whole process using Zoho Expense application. In Zoho Expense, we have three user roles. So one is a submitter, and the second one is an approver, and the third one is an administrator. A submitter is one who is a traveling employee, that is, he'll be the one who is incurring most of the traveling expenses. He has to upload a lot of receipts, he has to create expenses, reports, and send them to a higher authority, that is, an approver, for getting them approved. So here, Manish Patel is a submitter in the organization Zilker Global. So this is his home screen, and the second user role is an approver. So he'll be the one who is approving this expense reports which are submitted by Manish. And here he is Charles Stone is an approver of Zilker Global. And finally we have Patricia Boyle. She is the administrator of Zilker Global. So she has access to all the modules in this organization. So I'll be switching between these three screens to make it easier for you guys to understand the whole workflow of this application. And I'll do it very slow so that you can actually see and understand how Zoho Expense works out for each role of the employees. So let's start with Manish. And as I said, he is a submitter or the traveling employee. So he's going on the same trip to New York. And this is how the home screen of Manish Patel, the home screen of Zoho Expense application looks for Manish Patel. So he has a dashboard with three quick links to create new expense, upload a receipt, and create a new report. And also, Zoho Expense is available in all the three mobile platforms, iOS, Android, and Windows. So in the home screen, the dashboard, below the dashboard, you can see the report summary in which the three status of the reports will be shown: unsubmitted, submitted, and awaiting reimbursement. The amount which is involved with each these status will be shown, and the number of reports also will be shown here. So the recent reports are also shown in this page itself. And down below, you can find an interesting feature to add your credit or debit card to this application. So you can just click on this plus add card button, and it will you can find your card from here. You can just type in the name or just select it from this list and put in the credentials and click on submit to connect your card to Zoho Expense. This application is integrated with more than 5,000 banks, so you can very easily connect your cards and fetch the transactions. So once your card is connected to Zoho Expense, your card will be shown here down below, like this one, Super CD Plus DAC credit card. It is a dummy card which I have added, and you can just click on this card to know the whole transactions. All the transactions in this card will be listed in this page. And for example, if this is a personal transaction and it is not a business expense, and you can exclude this particular transaction from by just clicking on this exclude button. You can just hover the mouse on this transaction and click on exclude. So once you click on exclude, that transaction will be moved to a different tab which is excluded. So you can view those transactions from here. So right now I'll be restoring that transaction. So for example, if this is a business expense, you have to create an expense, you can just click on this transaction. All the details will be fetched from the transaction itself. That is the date, the amount will come up here, and you can just categorize it, and you can mention any details if you want, like merchant, and description if required. And if it is a billable expense, that is if in case if your company is working for a client and it is a billable expense to that customer, you can just mark it as a billable and choose your customer from the list here. And in case if there is any project name involved with this customer, that also will be listed over here, and you can choose a project name and click on save. Also, you can add it to a report directly from here, but right now we will just click on save and create this expense. And in case if you have a receipt, you can attach the receipt either from the cloud or computer, or either from the existing receipts. So we will just click on save, and one expense is created. So that transaction is made to an expense now. Next feature is the receipt section, where you will be able to drag and drop a receipt to this particular Zoho Expense application, or you can attach it from the computer or from the cloud. So I'm just attaching it from the computer. So when it is attached, when it is uploaded, the scan will be in progress. During the scan, the whole details in this receipt, that is the merchant, the amount, the date, and the payment mode will be fetched from the receipt, and it will automatically create an expense. So while the scan is getting completed, we will just go to the expenses section and check what that is. So in the expenses tab, you will find all the expenses which this particular user, that is Manish, has created until date. So this is one expense which we just created from the card. It will show here. And to create a new expense, you can either click on this plus button, the quick create button, or this plus new expense button. And if you want to add bulk expenses, that is lot of expenses together, you can just click on bulk add expenses, put in the date, categorize, and mention the amount and merchant, give a description, and you can just click on save to create bulk expenses. So we will just create a new expense right now by just clicking on this plus new expense button. And in case if it is a normal expense, you can use this tab, or if it is a mileage expense, you can use this tab. So first we will create a normal expense. You can choose the date, category, mention the amount, and in case if you're traveling abroad, you can choose the currency from here, and this application will automatically fetch the exchange rates and convert it to your base currency. So we can just mention the amount. The tax involved will be shown here. You can choose your taxes from here, and if you want to claim reimbursement for this expense, you can put a check mark here. The payment mode can be chosen, merchant, and if it is a billable one, you can put a check mark on billable and choose your customer. So you can click on save, and that expense is saved. So these are two expenses which we just created. One is air travel expense. The second one is this one, and the final one, the receipt which we just uploaded has come up here. We will just go back to the receipt section, and you can see that the scan is complete and all the details are fetched here. You can just click on this receipt to see the complete details. So it is still in uncategorized state. You can just click here and categorize it accordingly. So you can mention more details if required. I'll just choose billable and I'll choose the customer, and you can click on save. So now all the three expenses will be listed in this page. And now I'll just check how mileage expenses are calculated. So you can go to the mileage tab here, and you can mention the date, the distance. You can calculate the mileage using the distance traveled or the odometer reading. So in case the odometer reading, you will have to put in the start reading and the end reading. Or if you want to choose the distance traveled, you can just mention the distance traveled here. So the rate per mile is already defined by the administrator user. So according to the distance traveled, the rate per mile, the amount will be calculated. So it will come up here automatically, and you will not be able to edit it. Your employees won't be able to edit it. You can put a description if required and choose billable in case, and choose the customer, and you can click on save. So right now we have created four expenses: the air travel expense, the second one from the receipts, and the third one creating an expense, and the fourth one a mileage expense. So now we have to create a report and include all these expenses and send them for approval. So for that, you can just go to the reports tab here. You can create a new report by clicking on this plus button or this plus new report button. So all the reports which you have created until date, this user by this user will be shown in this page here. You'll see the status of it, the date, the start date, etc. And all the details are shown here. You can just click on this plus new report button, give it a name, and you can choose a duration, and you can mention the customer, and you can choose whom you have to submit this particular report to. So we will be submitting it to the approver, Charles Stone. So I'm choosing his name here, and down below you will find unreported expenses for, that is the expenses which are not associated with any reports. So you can just click on this icon here, and you can include these these expenses by just clicking on include button. So now all the four expenses are included in this report, and now you can just click on save, or if you want to submit it directly, you can click on save and submit. So I'll just click on save, and now this report is created, and it is you can see it here. So it is still in the draft status. The reimbursable amount is shown here, and whom to submit to is also shown. And in case if you want to add a new expense to this particular report, you can just click on the plus new expense button. So the whole expense details will be shown. And in case if you want to send a comment for on a particular expense to your approver, you can just click on this plus button. So you can just click on send here, and this comment will be sent as an email to your approver. So the whole details is mentioned here, and in case if you have received any advance payments, you can click on this record advance payment, mention the amount you have received in whatever currency you want, and you can just click on record advance. So the reimbursable amount has come down and the advance amount is recorded. So now you can just go ahead and submit this particular report. So I'm going to submit, and we are going to submit it to Charles Stone, our approver. You can choose whom you want to submit it to. And in case if someone else wants a copy of this report while you're submitting it, you can mention their email address over here or choose their name from the list shown below. So right now I'll just click on submit and submit this particular report. So now this report is submitted, and in case if you want to edit or like if you want to recall this particular expense report, you can always recall it by just clicking on the recall button. And another feature, if you want to get a PDF file of this report, you can just go to more and click on PDF. A PDF of the report will be downloaded with all the receipts in this expense report. So you can see it here. The whole details are shown in this PDF report with the receipt involved. So this same PDF file will be attached to the email notification which will be sent to the approver while you submit this report. So now we will just go to the approver section. Like let's see what happens with the approver. And we have one more tab left over here, which is the analytics section. Using the analytics tab, you'll be able to run analytics on all these sections, that is expense by details or by category. You can just click on it and you will get an exact analytics report on how much you're spending on each category. You can either have it as a pie chart or a bar chart. You can also choose the date range from here and just click on run report. So the whole details will be shown here in each category. So likewise, you can run analytics on all these sections. Only the expenses which this particular user, that is Manish, created will be accounted for this analytics. So this is all about a submitter's point of view of Zoho Expense. Now let's see what happened with our submitted report, the trip to New York, which we just submitted. And this is the home screen for Charles Stone, that is our approver. So he has the same features. The dashboard is the same, and the home screen which has reports pending approval, and this report summary will be shown, the recent reports, and he also can add his credit or debit card to this application. From the receipts tab, he can upload or drag and drop receipts to this section to initiate the auto scan feature and create expenses. In the expenses tab, Charles will be able to see all the expenses which he created until date. Similarly, in the reports, all the reports which are created until date by Charles will be shown in this section. And in the approvals tab, you can find, the approver, this is a new tab. This is an additional tab which an approver has. So in this tab, he'll be able to find all the expense reports which are submitted by the submitters to him for approval. So this is the report which we just submitted, but the Manish just submitted, and trip to New York, and it was submitted to Charles. So that is the reason it is coming up here. So you can just click on this report and view all the details here, like submitted by, the duration, the customer name, and the comment which was sent by Manish is shown here. So you can just comment back, and even this comment will be sent as an email to the submitter. So the total reimbursable amount is shown and the whole history will be shown here. You can also view the receipts by just clicking this button, and you can now approve it or reject it. In case if Charles feels, if the approver feels that he is not the right person to take action on this particular report, he can forward this report for a higher authority's approval by just clicking on the forward button and select the user whom you want to send it to, and you can have a message with it and click on forward. So that report will be sent to a different user or a different approver or a different administrator for approval. So now we will just click on approve and approve this report. So this report is approved now, and now we have to get this report reimbursed. So a reimbursement can be done only from administrator. I mean, reimbursement can be recorded only by an administrator. So before we go to the administrator section, let's see what analytics. It's all similar, like a submitter. He can also run an analytics. An approver also can run analytics on all these sections. So he'll be able to run analytics by customer category. Similarly, very similar with what a submitter can do. So this is all about the approver's point of view of Zoho Expense. And now we will check how, what is happening with an administrator. So this is our administrator, Patricia Boyle, and she has a similar home screen with a dashboard and quick links. And all the quick links are shown here. The report summary, the recent reports will be here. And down below, she can also add her card, credit card or debit card, and fetch transactions from there. The receipt section, which will help in dragging and dropping the receipt to initiate the auto scan feature, and the expenses tab, which will help in which will find all the expenses which are created until date by Patricia, will be shown in this page. So she can also create a new expense and from or fetch it from the card, anything like that, just similar with approver as well as the submitter. In the reports tab, she can find all the reports which are created by Patricia until date and the status of it. And in the approvals tab, she has two new features. That is, using the filter, she'll be able to find the to be reimbursed expense reports as well as all company expense reports. That is, in case if a report was not submitted to her, I mean to an administrator user, she can find that report by going to the all company filter here, so that all the reports which are submitted in her company, in her organization, will be listed in this page. Even if it is not submitted to this administrator, I mean even if it is not submitted to Patricia, all the reports which are present in all the reports which are submitted in her organization will be listed in this page. So similarly, she can go to be reimbursed filter to see all the reports in approved status and which are awaiting for reimbursement. So I've just gone to the to be reimbursed filter, and here you will find the trip to New York, which was submitted by Manish and approved by Charles, is listed here. So you'll find the details here, approved by Charles and submitted by Manish. The whole details will be mentioned here. You can also find the comments which were passed by Charles and Manish. The whole history of this report will be shown here down below. The total advance amount, the total expense amount, and the reimbursable amount are shown here. And she can also find, I mean she can also get a PDF of that report, like just by clicking on this PDF, or if she wants to export this report to a XLS or a CSV format, you can just click on export and export it as a CSV or an XLS format to import it in a different accounting software. So even if now if she finds, I mean if an administrator user finds any fault with this particular expense report, she can just click on this reject button and reject this expense report. So it will be sent back to Manish for any changes, and Manish will be able to resubmit that particular report. So once the reimbursement is done to Manish, so once the payment is completely settled with Manish, administrator user can record the reimbursement by just clicking on this icon, record reimbursement. So the reimbursement date can be chosen, and the paid through account, which will be coming up from the accounting software if it is Zoho Books, will be, you can choose it from here, and you can record the reimbursement by clicking on this icon, record reimbursement. So now this particular expense report is marked as reimbursed, and this is the whole workflow of this application, how a expense report is created, it's submitted, approved, and how it is marked as a reimbursed report. So now an administrator user has a tab analytics, which looks similar with a submitter and a approver, but when an administrator runs an analytics, she'll be able to run it on a company point of view. That is, if a Patricia runs an analytics on expenses by category, the whole expenses which are in approved status in her organization will be taken to consideration. So she can choose a date range, like a year or a month, or like you can also choose a specific dates here, and the status can be chosen: submitted, approved, rejected, or reimbursed. And the users, if you want to filter it according to a user, you can choose the users also from here, and you can just click on run report, and the whole you can get it, you can get the get the analytics report in a pie chart format or as a bar chart. And you can also export this as a CSV, XLS, or a PDF file. You can also find, for example, if you want to find the exact expenses which have happened in air travel expense category, you can just click on this button, and whole expenses under this category will be coming up here. And you'll also find to which report each expense is associated with. So likewise, you can create, you can run analytics on policy violations, reimbursement by user, or expenses by your employees, that is expenses by user, or expenses by customer, or a project likewise. And so this facility is available only for a administrator user, that is to check the analytics from a company point of view. So this section, the settings module, is accessible only for an administrator user. So this is from where you can set up your organization. If you just click on settings, the organization profile will find your organization logo will be there, and you can edit or make any changes in this particular section. You can also make your base currency. You can choose your base currency from here, and fiscal year can be chosen. The language, it's currently available only in English. The time zone can be chosen, and also the date format on which, like by which, like you have to get it in your expense reports or PDF files, all can be chosen from here. So the base currency is nothing but your accounting currency. And once your organization is set, you can invite your employees to this organization. You can go to the users and click on invite user. You can mention their email address, their name, and you can choose what role they have to do in this Zoho Expense organization. So you can have multiple number of submitters, approvers, and administrators. You can also choose a default approver for this particular user. So in case if you are having a department based hierarchy, you can have a department head for a particular user, for a particular section of users. And you can just click on invite. An invitation will be sent to that email address, and they will be able to join the organization by clicking on a link in that email address. So you can also import users from Zoho CRM. You can just click on import CRM users and choose the user which you want, and the role in CRM will be shown here, and you can choose what role they have to do in Zoho Expense. And once you click on import, those users will be imported to Zoho Expense. You can also mark a user active or inactive by clicking on this edit button. And so this is how you invite users to your organization. The next is the preferences section. That is, you can how to set preferences for your expenses. So we will just first check how expense preferences are set, and then go back to the categories. So in expense preferences, you can manage your currencies. That is, you can just click on manage currencies in case if you're dealing with a new currency. If your employee is going to a different country which is not listed here, you can just add their currency by just clicking on plus new currency. Choose your country. Choose the country which you're going, and the currency symbol will be coming up automatically like this. And you can just click on save, and that currency will be added to the Zoho Expense organization. So your employee will be able to choose that currency while he creates expenses. And if you want to enable automated currency conversion, you can put a check mark here. If you don't put a check mark, you can set the currency conversion rate manually. So if you want to make expenses reimbursable by default, you can put a check mark here. You can also set an expense expiry period. That is, if your expense, if the expense was created, if the expense happened like 30 days before, and your company will allow only reimbursement if the expense is less than 30 days old, you can set it as 30 days. And if the expense is crossing the expiry period, your employee will be shown a warning message. And the next is the general policies in an organization. You can set expense amount limit. For example, like here I have set the expense amount limit as 5,000 US dollars. So if you can edit it according to what you want. And receipt required limit as $500. So that is when your employee creates an expense above $5,000, they'll be shown a warning message stating that it is crossing the limit. So for example, I'm just going to create an expense. If I'm creating it for a 20,000 US dollars, it will show this warning message that is exceeds policy limit $5,000 and it requires a receipt. So it has violated two policies. So likewise, you can set, I mean, it will not stop you from submitting or creating expenses or expense reports, but still the employee as well as the approver will be seeing this warning message. That is, it is not, I mean, it's not feasing with your company policies. So likewise, you can make description mandatory or allow uncategorized expenses to be part of expense reports. You can also set when to get notifications, that is when it is nearing the expiry date. You can set it when, that is daily, weekly or monthly basis. And this is a field customization section. So you can choose what all fields your employees must have while they create expense. So those fields which are enabled here will be shown while your employees create an expense. So once you've set this expense preferences, you can just click on save and it will be reflected while your employee creates expenses. So the next section we will go to the categories, the preferences, category preferences. So we have like a lot of categories over here, and you can, so for example, air travel expense. I mean, if you want to create a new category, you can just click on this plus new category button and you can put in a category name, and if you want to override general policies for this particular category, you can put a check mark here and mention a different expense amount limit and receipt required limit. Or if you don't want expense amount limit or receipt required limit for this particular category, you can put uncheck these from here. You can also, for this particular category alone, you can make description mandatory. So that is how you override the general policies of a company for a particular category. You can have account code so that when you import, I mean, when you export the XLS file, that GL code will be coming up to match with while you import in your accounting software. So once you're done with that, you can click on save. And so you can also edit an existing category by just clicking on it here. So in case if you want, if air travel expense, if you want to override the general policies, just as I said, you can just put a check mark, mention a different amount, or just uncheck it if there is no problems with it. So the next is the mileage preferences. So it is where you can set the default unit as a kilometer or mile, and the default category for mileage expenses, and all the mileage expenses will be coming up in this particular category. So you can just set mileage rates. So for example, here I have set the mileage rate on April 15th 2015. The mileage rate was set to $3. So that is any expenses after 15th of April, the mileage rate, I mean, the mileage rate will be coming up as $3. So on 22nd of April, I have changed it as $0.58. So from 22nd, it will be changed to $0.58. Likewise, you can set the date and put in the amount. I mean, put in the mileage rate according to the date your employee enters. The mileage rate will be calculated. And next is the report section. You can set auto generate expense report number. The prefix and start with number can be given. Also, you can have a custom field. For example, while your employee creates an expense report, if you want to know a section, I mean, if you want to know the department from which he is submitting this report, you can mention department here, and that department field will be coming up. So if you want to know location, you can just type in location. Likewise, you can have 3 custom fields. These custom fields will be coming up while in the exported data, that is in the XLS file as well. And you can include signature line in all PDF reports. And while you submit the expense report, if you want a PDF file, that is the PDF report, to be attached to that notification email, you can put a check mark here. And if you want to copy the submitter in that notification email, you have to put a check mark here. And while you submit the report, if someone else needs a copy of that report, you can put a check mark here and just mention that particular the particular email address to which a copy is to be sent. Just mentioning there, you can just mention that email address here. So likewise, approval preference, you can allow approvers to approve their own reports. So in case if you uncheck this box, approvers will have to submit their reports to a different approver or a administrator. So you can make reports due for approval within X number of days of submission and notify the approver when submitted reports are nearing to the due dates. So you can so for like this section, the receive a copy of the report while its approval is done. You can mention, for example, if your finance department wants a copy of the email, copy of the report while it is approved, you can put a check mark here and mention the finance department email address. So any report, when it gets approved, automatically the report will be sent to the finance department. So you can set when to get notifications, like while expense reports are approved or rejected, or expense reports are marked as reimbursed, and when comments are added to expense reports. So once you're done with that, you can just click on save to save these preferences. So the next is the customers list. So you can add a new customer by just clicking on the plus new customer list, and you can mention the name and the currency in which you are dealing with that particular customer, and you can just click on save. So you can edit an existing customer from here itself or delete an existing customer. So you can create projects for these customers. So if you go to the projects, and you can just click on the projects plus new project here, and you can give a project name and you can mention the customer name for whom you are working for on this project. And you can associate users, that is, if a section of your employees is working on this particular project, they will be only able to access that particular project, that is, no other employees will be able to access that project. So you can associate the users and just mention their, you can just choose the users from here from the list, and you can just mention their email address. It will be coming up automatically, and click on save. So likewise, you can add merchants or merge a couple of merchants by just clicking, by just putting a check mark here and clicking on merge. So you can just, those merchants will be merged automatically. And you can create a new merchant if required. But when you create expenses itself, you can just type in to add a new merchant. So no problem, if your employee is going somewhere and it's a new merchant, you can just type the merchant's name in case if you want to add a new merchant. So this is a master list of all merchants here. You can edit it or remove it if required. So the next is the taxes section, where you can add a new tax or create a new tax group. You can just click on plus new tax button here, give a tax name, and given the name, the rate. And if it is a compound tax, just put a check mark here and click on save. And if you want to add a new tax group, you can mention the tax group name and choose those taxes which you want to be in this particular tax group, and then click on save. So these taxes will be listed when your employee creates expenses. So the employees can choose their taxes from this list. Next is the integration with other Zoho applications. So Zoho Expense is integrated with Zoho CRM. So you'll be able to create expense reports for accounts in Zoho CRM. Accounts or customers in Zoho CRM. So, and Zoho Books, regarding integration with Zoho Books, any approved expense in Zoho Expense will be moved to Zoho Books as an expense for your organization. So you needn't do anything special, no importing or exporting. You can, if you just approve the report in Zoho Expense, those expenses will be moved to your Zoho Books if it is your accounting software. So you can go to purchases, expenses, and there is a separate filter for Zoho Expense from Zoho Expense. And you will find these were the expenses, expense which we just approved here. That is the air travel, meal, all these expenses which we just created and approved have come up automatically in Zoho Books. So this is all about the the workflow and the about Zoho Expense application. So if you have any doubts or any questions, please do post them in the control panel chat box, and we will be answering them. Also, if you liked any features or if you like the application, and if you're impressed with any of its features, you can let us know by tweeting hashtag Zoho Expense and your comments with it, so that we'll come to know about it. And so I hope you guys enjoyed the session, and have a great day.